Coming up on this episode.
Where do you stand on, I have this conversation with people all the time, highly emotionally intelligent people who have the ability to understand self, to manage self, they have the ability to read situations accurately, and they're very, very good at responding and reacting accordingly. Where do you stand on that challenge though, where they say, but isn't that manipulation?
Being able to genuinely connect with someone in your team, if they're struggling, if you know how to support them, you're bringing them on a journey then. You're helping them to perform to their best ability. I just think, why would you not want to be able to do that?
Yeah. I see it as a responsibility myself.
Yeah.
Every day I come into T2, it's not just working with our clients. I've got a dual role, haven't I? I'm trying to work with, educate, help, support and develop leaders across the world.
Yeah.
Whilst also being a leader myself. So I often find people can have the self-awareness and be high on self-awareness, but they're rubbish at the self-management part of it. So that's going to take time, isn't it? And practice is self-management.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned it before, you're not always going to get it right.
Welcome to the People Performance Podcast. The People Performance Podcast is made up of 3 series. First up, we have the Leader Lounge episodes with founder of T2, Martin Johnson. Then we have the guest interview episodes. And finally, we have our performance episodes delivered by our very own T2 consultants. For now, sit back, tune in and enjoy the People Performance Podcast.
So welcome to the People Performance Podcast with me, Martin Johnson.
And me, Claire Gleave.
Claire, how are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to T2 HQ. You've had your guided tour. What do you think of the building?
It's amazing. Honestly, it's great to see it in person after seeing it in all the photos. It looks fantastic.
Lovely. I've been trying to get Claire on the podcast for a while. She is now here. She's travelled across from
Manchester, just outside of
area.
Manchester, yeah.
And so it's great to have you in the studio. How nervous are you on a scale of 1 to 5 right now?
Oh, I'd probably say I was about an 8 when I arrived, but now it's easing down now, probably a 4.
Love that. So, Claire, you are the head of communications and business support for Findel PLC. Mm-hmm. We've worked with Findel now for a while, good few years. It's been an amazing journey. And it's safe to say you've always took an active interest in our podcasts, our content, our development, not just in the work we've done, but in your own time as well. Yeah. And so it's lovely to actually get you involved and be here today. So welcome. We are going to be talking today about communications in general, why it's so important in leadership and for the future of organisations. And specifically, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence, because it's something you feel passionately about, isn't it, Claire? But before we do, give us a little bit of your background, a little bit more to you and what you do.
Yeah, so I guess I was one of those people that left high school with really good qualifications, but I never knew what I wanted to do. So I ended up in college. I ended up dropping out of college because I just didn't know exactly what it was that I wanted to do. But I've always had that ambition and that work ethic to kind of do something and do it really well. So I landed a role in admin and I worked my way up through various different admin roles. Currently, I work for Findel and I was brought on at Findel as an executive assistant to the CEO. I won a Manchester PA award a few years ago, and then after that, that was kind of the trajectory for me to go into the world of internal comms. So now I'm heading up internal comms at Findel. So that's everything internal, but also a little bit of external as well on the brand corporate perception, if you like, looking at LinkedIn mostly. But I really, really enjoy internal communications and bringing that sense of purpose to what it is that we do as well and connecting people with that message.
Well, I always say, don't you think, with communications, it's ultimately storytelling.
It is.
And I always say about the psychology of great leaders and great communication, it's their ability to storytell, their ability to bring something alive in the mind of an audience.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so your role for the past few years, or certainly right now at Findel, is how do you take what the organisation is trying to achieve and what the leadership team are trying to deliver and drive and bring it alive and connect every single person in the organisation to it? Would that be a fair sort of analogy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I like to see myself as a bit of a translator. you've got to, as you described there, take that corporate message, but make that filter into the organisation so that absolutely everybody understands that message and the part that they play in it as well.
Love that. So let's get stuck into one of the themes we're going to talk about, which is emotional intelligence. And you're huge, Claire, from my understanding, on saying that emotional intelligence is a big, if not the main ingredient in communication in leadership.
Yeah.
Would you stand by that? And if so, why do you think that?
Yeah, I think, the landscape of the world of work has changed so much over the last few years, I don't want to use the C word, but COVID was, as we all know, a huge catalyst.
I'm glad that's the C word you picked. I was worried for a second there.
Could have been Christmas, could have been... No. But it was, it was a real point in time where work generally, just behaviours as a human, as an employee, it shifted. And I think, emotional intelligence plays a huge part in how we do communicate now. And it's not just surface level. And I think, as we step through this, we'll talk about some of the key things in why it's really important for leaders in particular to have high emotional intelligence skills.
Okay, let's circle back to that. I told you I would go anywhere with this. We may have a little loose structure, Claire, but be prepared to go in any direction, and you said let's go for it. So, all right, let's circle back to emotional intelligence, but let's just build upon general communications in leadership, and that storytelling, and the ability to bring something alive in the mind of an organisation that directly connects them to what it is that the organisation is trying to achieve. So we live in this modern day world, in the digital industrial revolution, 2026, the birth of AI, 5-6 generations in an organisation at any one time, and we can go on and on and on about how we've evolved so much in society and in organisations. However, what are you seeing right now as the biggest shift? Like, do you think it's changing as quick as everybody says? And if so, what is the biggest thing to consider when it comes to communicating in organisations, whether you're 100 people, 50 to 100 people, or 2,000?
Yeah. I think the world of work now, there's constant change, and that's from internal pressures, external pressures. There's new systems, new processes, the external pressures such as, external markets, inflation, conflict. There's so much change going on, and it's relentless in organisations. So it's really important that organisations are clear. So, they lead with clarity. They build that trust, and that, the clarity builds consistency, and it's the consistency that builds the trust then within the organisation that everybody kind of believes in, and everybody's singing on the same page then, aren't they?
Okay, so let's go into those two things. Clarity and consistency is one, and trust.
Yeah.
What are the do's and don'ts then? What are the things organisations in the modern day world are doing well when it comes to delivering clarity and consistency? And I guess the contra to that is what do organisations not do very well when it's poor? And the same for trust, in your opinion or observations, when it comes to good quality communications.
Yeah, I think, organisations historically lead with a corporate speech. It's pitched up here. There's a lot of jargon in it, and really now, talking about all the different generations, it just has to be pitched at the right level that people can jump on board and say, I get that, rather than having to read it 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times and think, what is actually being expected of me here, And it's that clarity that it is tricky in times because, as you say, you're working across multi-generations that expect different things, that want to be connected and communicated with in different ways. So sometimes it is a really tricky task to pitch that right. But I think, again, emotional intelligence for me is an amplifier of that.
And I also think on the clarity piece as well, I have a saying that I certainly am here at T2 with the guys, and they would all probably vouch for this, is I'm unapologetically repetitive about the same few things all year.
Yeah.
Whether that's our mission, our vision, or the plan is the plan, or whatever. And so the language becomes so understood because you're repetitive with it rather than, like you say, saying something or putting something on the wall or putting a communication out and then that's it.
Yeah.
So repetition, one thing we know in psychology is we're more likely to retain something the more repetition we have.
Yeah.
So is that a part of clarity and consistency, that you're repetitive with your message?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the way you deliver that message is everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. It's having the plan and sticking to that plan. You know, obviously change happens and some things, you know, you have to navigate through. But the repetition, as you would describe there, 100%, that repetition, that builds that clarity, that builds that trust, you know, and it works both ways.
All right, let's go into trust then. So what builds trust in communications? Because we all know organisations we work with quite a lot where the leadership team can put out communications in many different formats.
Yeah.
Town halls, email,
Yep.
you know, podcasts. You know, there's loads of different creative ways people are trying to communicate with their teams and with their employees right now. But if they don't trust a single word you're saying, if they just say, here's another load of bollocks from the senior leadership team, you know, how do you what causes that, like, discrepancy? What causes that disengagement between the workforce and the leadership team versus what builds the trust? Is that anything to do with communication, or is that outside of that, or what would your answer be on that?
I think it's behaviours, isn't it? It's people seeing the behaviours. You know, if they're being communicated and being told that this is what we expect of you, they expect to see that behaviour coming from the leader. And
So
if they don't,
modelling.
absolutely, if they're not seeing that behaviours, then that's, as you say, you know, they're going to be thinking, why should I do that if I'm not seeing that coming from the top?
Yeah. Role modelling behaviours.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. Let's circle back into emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence, how would you describe that? I mean, obviously, we do a lot on it at EAT too. There's a lot in the public domain about it. But what's your philosophy on emotional intelligence, and why is that so important? I mean, I think we're going to go into it, but Dan Goleman's model of emotional intelligence is probably the most, I would say, well understood.
Yeah.
And probably the most scientifically backed. And so Goleman's 4 areas of emotional intelligence is probably the one most people would resonate with. But why emotional intelligence for you? And then we can maybe go into Goleman's model and talk about each of the areas.
Yeah, I think, you know, emotional intelligence for me is something that I think because of my print profile, I find it quite easy.
What's your print again?
So live life and be happy, needed and appreciated. Is that 6-2, 7-2?
Yes, so it's a 7-2. Well
7-2,
done.
yeah.
It's a 7-2. For people who are listening to this podcast and you're thinking, what the hell are they on about print and 7-2? We've done lots of profiling at Findel and with Claire and the team, and this uncovers your unconscious motivators, which is the way you see the world. I knew you was a 7-2, so I was just testing whether you knew you was a 7-2.
I remember you said the first time you met me, you knew that I was going to be a 7-2.
I knew you was going to be a 7.
Yeah.
I definitely knew you was going to be a 7. Obviously, the 2 makes sense now. But for people listening, your major motivations in life, the way you see the world, is to enjoy life and be happy.
Yeah.
You want to enjoy what you do. You want to have a positive, can-do view of the world, and you're a very optimistic person. And the second motivation that scored highly for you was to be needed and appreciated by others. Now, that might make you sound a bit needy. It doesn't. But what it means is Claire wants to go above and beyond to help other people.
Yeah.
And if they do, you get your ultimate validation back from that. So it's a very creative, humanistic combination of motivation. So it doesn't surprise me that you resonate with emotional intelligence, because you probably display a lot of it naturally yourself.
Yeah. I think that's it. And, you know, going back to Findel, I'll be pretty confident in saying that print profiling has ultimately changed leadership at Findel. And I think it's done that in 2 ways. One of them is the self-awareness piece. So, you know, I personally am very aware now when I'm operating in shadow self, you know, because of the 2, I do take on a lot. I like to do that. I don't say no to a lot of things, but, you know, I can become very overwhelmed then. And I notice those shadow traits and behaviours creeping in. So the self-awareness piece is the first part of that. But then the second piece then is I use print profiling if I'm going into a meeting with someone that I don't have a, you know, existing relationship with, or we don't work closely. I'll have a quick look at their print profile. read that, see what their triggers are, and then I'll use that to shape a conversation with them so that I get the most out of that conversation. And you kind of play into how they want to receive a conversation or instruction. So I think print has been transformational for us in terms of unlocking some of that emotional intelligence.
That's awesome, and it's exactly what it's designed to do. What I like about that and linking it to emotional intelligence is it's a tool that can be used to enhance emotional intelligence. Like you might go, I think Martin is wired in this way. I'm looking at his behaviours, the way he acts. I think I understand him and I think I get who he is, but am I right?
Yeah.
Let's have a little look at his print profile and what his motivations are and how he's likely to show up and what triggers him into counterproductive behaviour or shadow behaviour, as you say. So it's just giving you more tools to even enhance that emotional intelligence. I love the way you said that. To shape better conversations.
Yeah.
To purposely shape a conversation in the right direction rather than just trying to get it right. But emotional intelligence in Goleman's world is that 4 areas. So let's just explore them. Self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management.
Yeah.
And so there's 4 sort of facets, 4 areas of emotional intelligence. And in order to be highly emotionally intelligent, you probably need to show a good understanding, stroke capability in all 4 areas.
Yeah.
Nobody ever does get it perfect, of course.
Yeah.
But let's start with self-awareness. It's what we're talking about now with the print profiling and the work you do on yourself.
Yeah.
But this is a deep understanding of yourself, your behaviours, characteristics and traits, and the way you are naturally likely to show up.
Yeah, that's it.
It's really important, isn't it? And I think at T2, the most work we do still today is on self-awareness.
Yeah. I think it unlocks a lot as well, though, the self-awareness piece. You know, for me in particular as well, it's you recognising, you know, I'm frustrated by this, and you're locking it into what it is that you're frustrated about, you know, and having that self-awareness just levels you a little bit sometimes because, you know, there's many things that trigger you, you know, everyone's different, aren't they? But self-awareness, I think, helps to unlock some of the other elements of emotional intelligence.
Yeah. It's almost the precursor. I always say in leadership, you can't bloody lead yourself unless you can, lead others unless you can lead yourself first.
That's it, yeah.
And so don't skip that bit. And I guess emotional intelligence is the same. All right, so doing work on self, understanding how you naturally show up, how you're wired, what your motivations are, your behaviours, your characteristics is one thing. But being aware of it is one thing. But coming to Goleman's second aspect of emotional intelligence, self-management, the ability to manage your state. Yeah. Now that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Because as we know, when you're compromised, frustrated or pissed off, there's very powerful brain chemicals at play that are making you feel in a certain way.
Yeah.
So pausing, intervening or managing that can still be incredibly difficult. So I often find people can have the self-awareness and be high on self-awareness, but they're rubbish at the self-management part of it. So that's going to take time, isn't it? And practice is self-management.
Yeah, I think, you know, you mentioned it before, you're not always going to get it right. But if you've got the self-awareness, you can build on that self-management. And there will be scenarios where you do it better than others. It might be with different people that you can manage it better than others, you know. But as you say, it's building on that and recognising that I'm actually getting better at doing that.
So I always say, with Goleman's first 2 areas of emotional intelligence, self-awareness and self-management, I know from the work we do, Claire, that it doesn't matter who you are on the planet and how you're naturally wired, every human being can improve those 2 things through knowledge, repetition and practice. You can become more self-aware through doing work on yourself and things like profiling and psychometrics, to feedback from friends and colleagues, to introspection, to reading self-development books, to loads of different stuff, right? And self-management, you can get better at intervening and pausing when you get triggered and coming up with coping mechanisms to manage your state. Yeah. However, when it comes to the next 2, I think some people naturally have the ability through natural emotional intelligence to be able to do this better than others. So let's go through them. Yeah. Third area is social awareness.
Yeah.
So this is your ability in social situations to pick up on group and power dynamics and read and interpret situations correctly.
Yeah.
Now, I know with certain profiles like yours, you have a radar that is constantly picking up.
Yeah.
You do this naturally, facial expressions, body language, emotional undercurrents, everything. And some people are a bit blissfully unaware and they pick up on nothing.
Yep.
Right? And there'll be people listening to this going, yeah, that's me. My wife or my husband tells me this every time. I don't pick up on anything. So, question for you. If you don't do this naturally, i.e. you can't read situations, can you get better at it in your opinion? Is it a gift?
It's a tricky one. I think you can in a way, but it's something that, as you say, for certain profiles, it just does come naturally. I can tell in an instant if you walk into a room if there's an undercurrent or if someone's pissed off or if, I can just tell. But I guess I find that hard because that comes naturally to me. I think some others would really have to work at that and maybe use the time to reflect on themselves first to be able to step into that zone, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I also think if you're struggling to read situations or you don't pick up on things easy, replace intuition with questions.
Yeah.
Can I just check? Am I landing correctly here?
Yeah.
No, you're not. Or can I just check, is this making sense? Have you got any concerns right now? Draw people in if you're struggling to think, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
Replace intuition with questions. It was something a great mentor of mine taught me a while back. He said, replace intuition with questions, because I do in some contexts. Strange. In some contexts, I'm on it. And in others, I'm not. I'm oblivious.
Really?
And so he always said, replace intuition with questions. And I do now. I check in.
Yeah.
Is this okay?
Yeah. Have I got this right?
Have I got this right? Was that a good meeting?
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and you resonate more with not being able to do the social awareness bit naturally, think about that as a tip.
Yeah.
What I will say on this though, Claire, is just because people like you do it well, there's a downside to that too, because sometimes you pick up on everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not even a big deal, but you're overthinking it.
Yeah. 100%. I am an overthinker of everything. Everybody that works with me, everybody that knows me will say I overthink everything.
Yeah. So sometimes knowing when to dumb that down a little bit and say, right, you're sweating the small stuff now, you're overplaying this.
Yeah.
Okay, the final segment comes after social awareness, which is relationship management or management of others, which says, if you think about the first two, they connect together. Be aware of yourself and then manage your own state. And then the second two link together, be aware of the group dynamic and others, and then know how to act and react to get the best out of the situation and others.
Yeah.
So how to act, react, or respond accordingly is the art to relationship management. I would say I'm very strong on the first two, self-awareness, and I'm getting better at self-management. Social awareness, I'm 50-50. The way to act and react accordingly, my biggest area for improvement. Because sometimes the way I feel, I just want to just, and I'm not thinking about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But this is the art of great leadership, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's where things like influence come into play as well, don't they? It's how you can influence others to get the best out of the situation or to get what you want from that.
Good thing that you said there. Where do you stand on, I have this conversation with people all the time, highly emotionally intelligent people who have the ability to understand self, to manage self. They have the ability to read situations accurately, and they're very, very good at responding and reacting accordingly. Where do you stand on that challenge, though, where they say, but isn't that manipulation? Where does authenticity and being your authentic self cross the line into purposeful? Yeah. And I say, hang on. Well, go on, let me ask you that first, and then I'll give you my view.
So it is a tricky line, authenticity and manipulation. I think authenticity is done from a good place. Manipulation is to get something out of it that isn't, what's the right way to say it? It's to get something out of it that isn't fair on both parts, if you like.
Well, I'm glad you've said that because you've nailed it and we're both aligned.
Good.
Yeah, the difference between the two is simply this. Emotional intelligence serves yourself and everybody really well when you are managing your state, you are reading situations, and you are responding appropriately for the greater good of both parties or all parties.
Yeah.
It turns into manipulation when you're using those skills for personal gain, even if it's to the detriment of others.
Exactly, yeah.
So absolutely would.
And it doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right, does it?
No. And so, yeah, that's how, for anybody listening to this, that yes, all of the great leaders, all of the people who have changed the world in history, all of the people who have the ability to mobilize, motivate, and inspire others, they're all highly emotionally intelligent, and they understand what their authentic self is, but they understand how to get the best out of people and contexts and situations, and that requires them to move and morph in those contexts and situations. And as long as it's for the greater good and for mutual benefit, that's a good use of emotional intelligence.
Definitely, yeah.
All right, so loved that, by the way. When we come back to communications and leadership then, everything we've just talked about with emotional intelligence and the importance of it and what it is, how does that play out when you're trying to communicate with an entire organisation who are all different profiles?
Yeah.
They're all different personality types. They all like to receive communication sometimes in different ways. And yet sometimes I feel sorry for leadership teams because they're trying to do the best they can with their communications, and they're trying to engage their entire audience into a direction.
Yeah.
But it can be so difficult because you've got hundreds, if not sometimes thousands of people who all like to maybe communicate in different ways. So is it an impossible task, or is there just some principles you have to stick to try and, because you're never going to win everybody all of the time, right? Is that one of the principles? Understand you're never going to win everybody all of the time.
Yeah, and you have to be comfortable with that as well. As an internal comms professional, you have to be comfortable with that. But I think as a general approach, use the know, feel, do. So what do we want people to know? What do we want them to do? And how do we want them to feel? And I think that in principle is a good model, certainly in communication, but leadership communication as well.
Just say that again for me, by the way.
So the know, feel, do approach.
Know, feel, do.
Yeah. But I think it is tricky. And in internal communications in that field at the minute, there's lots of work being done around personalisation. And that's targeting and grouping types of people into their persona, and how do they like to be communicated. And that's a really interesting topic, probably one for another time. But part of the work that I've done on my recent qualification looks into, are people their authentic self while they're at work? Is there a home version of Martin and a work version of Martin? So
you've done a lot on this at T2. I find there's a split. There's those people that say, I'm a very different person at work to I am at home. And there's those people like me who say, I can't be anything other than but myself. And I'm very similar in my personal life as I am my professional career. And I don't think there's any right or wrong on that. Some people like to separate the two. What I will say is, out of all of the work we've done and all the people I've spoken to and my own experience of this, I think we all mask to an extent at work.
Yeah.
I think we all understand our duty of managing our personal frustrations more at work and our shadow behaviour and our triggers.
Yeah.
We're more likely to try and work through problems and issues professionally. And personally, we're more likely to go home in the safety of our own home and probably let our chimp out and be a bit shitty. And sometimes our family and kids and friends get the brunt of that.
Yeah.
And I think all people generally will definitely consciously try to mask and put their best foot forward a little bit more at work than they will in their personal lives.
Yeah.
But you're right, coming back to your point, how do we personalise communications to be able to land properly? But that's difficult when you've got hundreds and hundreds of people in an organisation.
Yeah, it is.
So does AI come into this, and where you see in AI, because it's a fine line between communications teams now, let's be honest, you could put a bunch of information into AI and say, I want to communicate with my organisation and deliver this message with this impact. Yeah. And AI will write it for you and you go send.
Yeah.
But there's no human side to that, really.
No.
Does it lose its tone of the organisation? Is it dangerous?
Yeah.
It's incredibly efficient. What's your views on AI and how's that going to shape internal comms and external comms for organisations going forward?
It's a really great question and one that's really relevant to now. And I'm hearing it a lot in the internal comms world. And I think AI can take a lot of the legwork. You know, it can produce content on a rapid scale. But there is absolutely a need for that human element to come in and humanise it and bring the authenticity. You know, I think one of the key things is that there will be a shift in terms of internal communicators and the role that they're expected to play, because you're taking all that content building. AI will just naturally do that. But the role of an internal communicator will be to humanise it. And that's where I think emotional intelligence will become the differentiator then.
Like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that. When you think of the leaders you've worked with, and you don't have to name anyone at this point, but just that general humans who are really good at communication.
Yeah.
Like if I said to you now, like, think of someone who springs to mind when you just think they're an awesome communicator, and they always land well with people, and they've just got this ability to impart knowledge and bring something alive in the mind of someone else. Like, what are they still doing today that the others don't do?
I think in its simplest form, they are connecting with people at all levels. They don't see themselves any different to anybody else in the organisation. It's that I think they have high expectations, but they also have high levels of care as well.
You've just hit on something which is important. So it's those people who balance.
Yeah.
We call it optimal leadership here, but they balance like the expectation and the assertive side of leadership.
Yeah.
With the ultimate support, trust, and I've got you back.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the way they go about it is real, authentic, and not from a hierarchical perspective. We're in this together. Yeah. We're a team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that. I always say that. I think the best leaders I've ever worked for are those people who absolutely strike that balance where when they walk in a room, I'm on my toes.
Yeah.
It's like I'm challenged healthily and I don't want to let them down, and I want to deliver.
Yeah.
And actually I know that if I don't, they'll call it out.
Yeah.
But also there's never a doubt in my mind that they've got my back.
Absolutely, yeah.
Or they'll support me in my moment of need.
Yeah.
When leaders balance those things, that's the sweet spot.
It is. And I think that's where it goes from communication to connection. Because communication is just a one-way process, whereas connection is a two-way exchange. It's where you're not just hearing what's being said, but you're actually feeling how that person feels. And that, for me, I think, you described it then as a sweet spot. I think if leaders get that right, it absolutely is a sweet spot.
I think that's going to be a salient point of this podcast from when it turns from communication to connection. From a one-way dialogue to a two-way mutual understanding and connection to what it is we're discussing or what the outcome is we need to achieve. That's the biggest opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, could talk to you all day long, but let me go into something else. So let's look at the future.
Mm-hmm.
We're in 2026. We've spoken about going back from COVID into generations. There's 5-6 different generations in an organisation now, so which creates different communication styles across human beings. Yeah. We've talked about digital and we've talked about AI.
Mm-hmm.
So moving forward, 5 years in advance, next 3 to 5 years, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for businesses, organisations, teams, for society?
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest, it's a societal thing now, isn't it?
Yeah.
When it comes to getting communication right or as good as you can.
Yeah. It's really interesting, that point that you make, because I keep my eye on the T2 socials. And I think last week you guys did a poll on LinkedIn, and one of the question was, what will define the best leaders in the next 5 years? So I was really interested to see that emotional intelligence actually came out on top. So, it's not just me thinking this. As a wider, it's something that others are feeling as well. So again, I know we've talked about it a lot, but I really do think that emotional intelligence will be that differentiator. And I think leaders that are good and have high levels of emotional intelligence, I think the gap's going to become bigger. If leaders just operate and continue to do without that, I think there's going to be a bigger gap then between teams that are developing and high performing. They'll be led by those leaders that are, really good emotional intelligent leaders.
So what we're saying there is technology and AI is here to stay, and we shouldn't ignore that. In fact, we've got to understand how we can leverage that to support healthy, growing, inclusive, engaged organisations.
Yeah.
And you'd be a fool not to leverage it. You'd be a fool to just say, I'm not getting on the AI train.
Yeah.
I think that is not an option. But you can't do so at the cost of basic human interaction, is what we're saying.
Absolutely.
You cannot abandon emotional intelligence and this general sort of notion of getting out there, being the most self-aware you can be as a human being, as a leader.
Yeah.
Work on yourself. Work on your self-management and how you react and respond to situations. Work harder on being able to interpret and read the mood of your organisation and of group and power dynamics, and then be able to act accordingly for the greater good.
Yeah.
And you can't just substitute that for technology, AI and efficiency.
No.
And so what you're saying there is, if you're not doing any work on this, you need to seriously consider how you are investing in and developing your leaders to become more emotionally intelligent.
Yeah, completely agree with that. And I think, some leaders see emotional intelligence as the soft skills, the fluffy stuff, but it's so much more than that. And that really, it bugs me that people feel like that and see it that way. I think, being able to genuinely connect with someone in your team, if they're struggling, if you know how to support them, you're bringing them on a journey then. You're helping them to perform to their best ability. I just think, why would you not want to be able to do that?
Yeah. I see it as a responsibility myself. Every day I come into T2, it's not just working with our clients. I've got a dual role, haven't I? I'm trying to work with, educate, help, support and develop leaders across the world.
Yeah.
Whilst also being a leader myself.
Yeah.
And trying to practice what we preach and deliver that internally for my own business. And I always have this saying, and I remind myself all the time of this, which is, I understand that I have the ability to change the weather.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the good or for the bad. And what I mean by that is I can walk in the morning, Ella will know, the team will know. And if I'm down and off and I don't do my usual, morning energy and routine, there can be an air of silence across the office, and people can be on eggshells and wondering, and it just ripples throughout the workforce. Or I can do the opposite. I can come in, my aura, my demeanour, my body language, my tone of voice, my energy can mobilise and motivate everybody into action by 9:05.
Yeah.
And so I understand that level of impact and responsibility. So I have no choice but to constantly challenge myself on my own emotional intelligence and make sure I'm as maximum self-aware as I can be, and I've got tools and techniques to manage my own state in order to then go and influence others. And I think everybody's got that responsibility as a leader.
100% agree.
Final question. So we always end every People Performance podcast with the same question. So I'm interested in your answer. And that question is, who is the greatest leader you have ever worked for? And why? And I always try and push you to say, can you name them and where it was and why they made such an impact on you?
Yeah, I think, and I'm not just saying there because I'm still there now, but Chris, who's our CEO, I've worked with Chris for 11 years now, and I think he is one of the most genuine, down-to-earth people. He's the CEO of the company. But he's worked his way up, so he knows what it feels like to be on the work, as part of the workforce. But I can guarantee he knows everybody's name at Findel. He will always acknowledge them, ask them how they are. And I think that's the reason for me, obviously being a real people person, somebody like that, I think, connects everybody. it's like the glue of the organisation, and everybody they get the message, you know what I mean? They're doing it, they buy in because they feel that he absolutely, you know, we talk about Chris and describe him. If he was a piece of rock, you know, you'd cut him right through and it'd be Findel inside. And I think that for me is the reason why he's the greatest leader that I've worked for.
Oh, I love that. I know Chris. I've worked with Chris and I see those qualities in him. I can see why you would say that. He's a top guy. Incidentally, your rock analogy, you know, I have that in my mind for all my staff as well. And I say, look, no one's ever going to live, breathe and bleed T2 like me.
Yeah.
Why should they, right? You know, they should be able to go home and go, right, it's a job at the end of the day. But I do want more than that. And what I mean by that is I know there's certain people here who have been here a long time where if you cut them in half, there's T2 inside them as well. And you're not going to get everybody like that, but the more pillars in your organisation you can get to with that passion and almost to be that rock analogy, then you're in a really good place culturally, I think.
It's a community, isn't it then? It's a family.
Yeah, they'll fight for it as much as you, and that's what you want. Right?
Yeah.
So, great answer, by the way. And I'm going to put you on the spot for a final question, which is actually this. It's been ages since I've spoken with you or worked with you or whatever it might be. You've seen a lot around what we do here at T2 and how we've worked with your organisation. But why don't we finish this podcast by saying you can ask me any question you like?
Oh, you've really put me on the spot now.
I have. What do you want to know? What do you want to ask me?
What do I want to know? So, what would you say has been your biggest achievement in growing T2? Like, what's been that standout moment for you where you've thought, hang on a minute, wow, that's been a bit of a switch for me?
That was a really good question.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You really put me on the spot.
So, I've got two moments during 10 years. I've got two moments during 10 years. The first one was about 4 years ago. We were 6 years into T2. And as anybody will know who has started a business, it's the first 3 years is survival mode.
Yeah.
And no matter how well you're doing, you are constantly thinking, as long as I can bring enough money in to pay the bills, keep people in jobs, pay my tax, and just keep my head above water, then you're winning, right? That's the first 3 or 4 years. And then you get to like 4 or 5 and you think, actually, I think I'm doing all right here. And we're now maybe out of survival mode and we're looking forward to saying, okay, we've got a business.
Yeah.
Can we grow this sensibly? But 4 years ago, so 6 years in for me, I took a massive risk and I created an event called the T2 Leadership Retreat.
Yeah.
And I know you're going to come one day, Claire. We're going to get you on it one day.
Love
Chris, if
there.
you're listening, can we get Claire on it, please, one day? She's just said a really nice thing about you know. So we rolled the dice and it was a huge investment. And I just wanted to create something different to conferences and the classic thing that we did. But I didn't know if I was bonkers or if it was actually going to work, because it's a high premium ticket price. It's 3 days and nights, immersive leadership development. We take them bloody whitewater rafting. We're doing things that are not classically out there in the corporate world.
Yeah.
Anyway, we put the first one out there. We managed to sell it out. We delivered it. And I remember driving home in the car. And we'd absolutely smashed it. And it was the most amazing 3 days ever. Oh. And I remember it was the first time since the day I set T2 up. And I don't share this with many people, so you've drawn a question out of me, which is showing a bit of vulnerability, but
love this.
It was the first time ever since the day I started where I actually felt like that we'd arrived and we was delivering a world-class product or service. I was so proud, and I was in the car and I thought, wow, we have arrived. And that is something that I can honestly, hand on heart, say that nobody else in this country can provide.
Love that.
Whereas for the first 6 years, you're constantly thinking, are we any good? Yeah. Are we doing well? How do we differentiate? What, you know?
Yeah.
And so that was a moment for me. And then the second moment came last year, which was when we bought this building.
Yeah.
So we finally was able, on the back of the growth and all the hard work, we was finally able to purchase this 6,000 square foot facility here in Hull, the T2 Performance Centre, and it's right on the Humber. You've had a little look around today.
It's gorgeous, yeah.
And I used to drive up to the building when we was renting it. I was renting it for 3 years and someone else owned it. And I used to drive up every morning and dream and think, I'd love to own this building. Oh. Can you imagine one day if I was able to buy it? So when I was able to do it and it went through last year, it was an incredibly proud moment that I thought, we've now got a home, and now that's going to secure the next 5 or 6 years for us to be able to go forward and thingy. So they're the 2 moments that I've actually given myself, because I'm quite harsh on myself and I never take time to stop and appreciate. They're the 2 months where I've actually sat back and gone, no, I'll enjoy this moment because it's well earned.
Amazing. Love that.
Thank you.
Love it.
That's really made me reminisce.
Oh.
Well, listen, Claire, that's been awesome. I could speak to you all day long. Thank you for coming over. I hope it's been a pleasant experience. Have you enjoyed it?
Oh, honestly, I've loved it. It's been really good. Thank you.
And there's loads of nuggets in there. I'm going to listen to it back, but there's a couple of things you've said that has really made me sit and think today, which I'm going to reflect on and replay back, particularly the communication versus connection one.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really, really salient point. But maybe we'll get you back sometime for another episode.
I'd love to, yeah.
I bet there's loads we could talk about.
Honestly, I could talk all day about it, yeah. I really could.
So, Claire Gleave, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll be back shortly with another People Performance podcast.
The People Performance Podcast, brought to you by T2.